In this teaching demonstration, I'm going to give an overview of rational emotive and cognitive behavioral therapy with an emphasis on theological integration and explanation of one REBT intervention that can be used with clients. So the first thing that we'll cover here is the thoughts, feelings, action, cycle, or interaction that's common with REBT, CBT, and then an overview of REBT, CBT, a touch again on the theological integration, and then a brief conclusion. You can see here what I call the cycle of interaction of thoughts, feelings, and actions, which are a key element of REBT and CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. The foundational idea of these two therapies is that our thoughts influence our actions and feelings, our actions influence our thoughts and feelings, and then our feelings influence both our thoughts and actions. And as a person who integrates theology often with, or biblical counseling with my counseling practice, I like to consider the idea of what does the Bible teach about these three elements. I've added some scriptures to this thought. These are not necessarily the scriptures that you would come up with if I were to ask you, hey, what does the Bible teach about our thought life? Or what did the Bible teach about our behavior or our feelings? But you can see here that I've included a few scriptures that might align with our thought life, our action, and our feelings, and actually how they interact with one another. So just a brief history of REBT or CBT. This theory was developed by Albert Ellis, and it has its roots in the cognitive behavioral of all the behavioral therapies. And it's gone through a different set of names over the years: rational therapy, rational emotive therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy. And now it's kind of commonly known in literature as REBT/CBT. REBT was the first and remains one of the major cognitive behavioral therapies in use by clinicians today. Some key concepts of REBT are the fact that it focuses on present emotional disturbances and the ABC framework, which we'll look at here in just a moment. But that's the idea of an activating event, a belief about that event, and then a consequence to our beliefs. Some of the basic hypotheses of REBT are as follows. The first is that emotions are created from or stem from our beliefs, and that the beliefs then influence or our evaluation or the interpretation that we make of things that happen in our life. And then certainly that our beliefs fuel our reaction to a variety of different life situations. So what does REBT look like in therapy? For the client, they're taught to identify and dispute irrational beliefs. And the term irrational belief is a little bit subjective because it really deals with, does this thought process work to help the client achieve their goals? And so clients are taught to identify those and dispute them as necessary. They're also taught how to learn to replace detrimental thinking. And that's the absolutist thinking that can easily come in, the automatic thoughts that come into a person's life. And then they're encouraged to focus on the present. We don't want to go way back. We want to deal with the issues that are at hand. Therapy from a counselor standpoint looks like this. The counselor is to help the client examine their beliefs. We help them to set therapeutic goals, which are realistic and life-enhancing. We point out the oughts and musts, as I mentioned before, the absolutist thinking that a client might have, and then we assign homework. Homework and psychoeducation are key elements of REBT, CBT. So where can we use this as therapists in our work? It's used for a variety of disorders: anxiety, depression, addiction, PTSD. And in all of these areas, REBT and CBT have been empirically proven to be effective in these instances. A key intervention is the ABCDE intervention, which we'll look at in a little more detail in just a moment. And hopefully you'll see and have seen a little bit already that REBT and CBT integrate well with Christian faith systems. And that's really due to the fact that it addresses how we're thinking about certain things. And if we can align our thoughts to biblical principles and biblical precepts, then often our Christian clients will see change that aligns them well with their faith system. So let's talk about the ABCDE model or intervention for rational emotive behavioral therapy. Now, often use of this intervention begins with the C that's right in the middle of the slide here, some sort of consequence. In this case, let's say it's a panic attack or an instance of anxiety. And so we look at this event or we look at this consequence, and we invite the client to kind of reverse engineer what happened. Hey, what was happening when you began to experience the anxiety that you're currently experiencing? That's the activating event, the letter A. What was happening at the time you began to be anxious? And then secondly, we ask the client to examine what were they believing about that particular event. When this event happened, maybe you got cut off in traffic and you began to have a panic attack. What were you believing? Was someone going to run over me? Is my life at stake? Different things like that. And then, of course, that leads to the consequence, the anxiety that the person is experiencing. And then we want them to be able to dispute or question those beliefs. Is my belief rational? Does thinking this way help me reach my goal? Does this consequence, this event, or this result of the event, is that part of what I want in my goal? And so if it's not the case, then we might need to dispute those beliefs. Is there another way to be thinking about this activating event? And then E, is there an effective new belief that can be applied, or a new emotion that can be applied to any particular activating event so that I don't end up with the same consequence again? So that's a brief overview of the ABCDE model, intervention for rational emotive behavioral therapy. So the things that I'd like for you to take away from this brief lesson is this: that a foundational aspect of REBT is that change thinking can result in change feelings and action. That's that cycle that we talked about earlier. And then REBT, CBT can provide an effective approach to many common counseling issues. It's helpful for many of the issues that our clients bring into the door. And then finally, Christian faith integration can be effectively accomplished with this particular theory.